Hey, I brought you a present.
What is it?
Open it up.
A book?
That's right. When I was your age, television was called books.
Does it got any sports in it?
Better than sports, this book is about beer.
Doesn't sound too bad. I'll try and stay awake.
The Prince's Bride.
This story has 4 chapters which will provide an overview of the beer making process. They include malting and mashing, boiling, main fermentation, and the end product. We will start with the malting and mashing process, which is shown in the red boxes. Malting is when the starches are formed and the grain is dried and milled. Next is the mashing process, which brings the dried and milled grain to 149 through 158 degrees Fahrenheit. This activates the enzymes that liquefy to eat up the starches and turn them into maltose, other simple sugars, peptides, and amino acids.
Multiple glucose molecules are covalently bonded together, forming longer chains. Shown in these chair conformations, maltose is the most common carbohydrate associated with brewing. Maltose consists of 2 glucose units, while maltotriose, a digestive enzyme, consists of a longer chain of 3 glucose units. The next major step in the process is boiling, also known as the hot break, shown in the highlighted steps.
The boiling process consists of the proteins being boiled so that they settle out of the liquid. This creates a gummy mass called shrub. Boiling acts to sterilize, deactivate the enzymes, precipitate the proteins, form the color, remove unwanted volatile components, and convert the main constituents of the hops.
Hops contain alpha acids and isoalpha acids, which are the main components that make beer bitter. The reactions of sugars with amino acids and the oxidation of polyphenols and caramelization of the sugars causes the wort to become darker. The evaporation of volatile compounds, such as aldehydes and hydrocarbons, in the malt and hops is important because a lot of these compounds are associated with bad beer flavors. During this boiling step, the flavors we love about beer are released from the hops, humulene from the hop oil, and isocohumulone, an isomerized hop alpha acid, provide its distinctive beer taste. Chapter 3 is called fermentation.
The key to making good beer is to make sure the unwanted bacteria does not overpower the beer and that the yeast takes control. By having good sanitation and adding the preferred cultivated beer yeast, it will flavor and create the alcoholic content of the beer.
For the chemistry behind fermentation, we will start with the yeast. The yeast eats up all the sugar and turns each sugar molecule into ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide. Once each of the fermentable sugars are consumed, the fermentation stops and the yeast goes dormant. The beer is then stored and cooled until it becomes a clear mixture. The pathway of the conversion of sugar to alcohol is shown here. A series of enzyme-catalyzed reactions convert each molecule of glucose into 2 molecules of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. In this yeast, this molecule is converted to the carboxylic acid, pyruvic acid, along with other byproducts in the process. From here, the pyruvic acid is converted to acetaldehyde, a simple aldehyde. Finally, the acetaldehyde is converted to ethanol with the help of NADH, which provides the lone hydrogen needed for the reaction. The hydrogen-lacking NAD+ goes back into the process and is the driving force behind the continual conversion of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate into pyruvic acid. The carbon dioxide created during the fermentation process is allowed to vent out to aerate and facilitate the yeast growth. This also prevents a dramatic buildup of pressure from arising within the fermentation vessel. You can see soapy water is used as a visual indicator of the carbon dioxide being produced and released. So in order to make sure that the beer goes from flat to an enjoyable bubbly beverage, the brewer will finally inject carbon dioxide back into the beer to the desired level. Performing the fermentation step properly and carefully is extremely important as bad, unwanted flavors can arise at this point. The formation of diacetyl is dependent on the temperature of the overall reaction mixture being too high, which means that more energy is required to be able to overcome the barrier to form the bad flavor product. The main mechanism contributing to the generation of trans-2-nonenal in beer is the enzymatic oxidation of lipids and oxidized free fatty acids. It has been recorded as producing a wet cardboard or recycled paper flavor.
The final chapter is about the end product. In the end, all beers are either ales or lagers, depending on the type of yeast used. Ales are made with yeast that ferment on top of the mixture, while lagers are made with yeast that ferment at the bottom. Soured ales are due to spontaneous fermenting yeast. There are further classifications of beer based on the flavor, color, and aroma called families. Then within each family there are more varieties. For instance, porters are a London-style dark ale, which is made with roasted malts, and a pilsner is a light yellow lager with a bitter, hoppy flavor.
Overall, there are a wide variety of beers and each one is chemically unique. The very popular Irish dry stout Guinness is famous for its dark color due to the melanoidin molecules which are formed during the Maillard reaction, which occurs in the boiling step, which we previously discussed. Due to the use of a special hop, which contains a higher than normal alpha acid composition, Guinness also has a noticeably bitter taste.
Are you trying to trick me?
Where's the history?
Is this a...
Chemistry book.
Wait, just wait.
When's it get good?
Keep your shirt on. Let me read.
And now, on to the history of beer. Beer has been around for centuries. It was early mentioned in the Bible as being used on Noah's Ark. It was also in a poem called Hintuninkhasi, a hymn of praise to the Sumerian goddess of beer. There are many written documents from as early as 4300 BC on Babylonian clay tablets, and historians say that beer may have been a vital part of civilizations such as the Babylonian, Assyrian, Egyptian, Hebrew, Chinese, and Inca cultures. Before the filtering of beer became a standard process, early cultures often drank beer through straws to avoid the grain holes left in the beverage. In 1516, German government enforced Reinheitsgebot, which stopped beer manufacturers from taking too much wheat and rye from the bakeries that made bread. This caused many types of beer to go extinct and lead to the domination of German lagers. In 1602, Dr. Alexander Noel discovers that ale can be stored longer in cork-sealed glass bottles, which led to the glass bottles we drink beer from today. Following significant improvements in the efficiency of the steam engine in 1765, the industrialization of beer became a reality. Further innovations in the brewing process came about with the introduction of the thermometer in 1760 and hydrometer in 1770, which allowed brewers to increase efficiency and attenuation. Prior to the late 18th century, malt was primarily dried over fires made from wood, charcoal, or straw. These would cause the beers to have a very smoky and unfavorable taste. Louis Pasteur's 1815 discovery of yeast's role in fermentation led to brewers developing methods to preventing the souring of beers by undesirable microorganisms. And yep, you guessed it, he also brought to us our favorite lab tool, the Pasteur pipette.
Abraham Lincoln taxed beer to help pay for the Civil War. In 1814, a 15-foot-high tidal wave of beer killed 8 people in London when almost 400,000 gallons of beer flooded the streets after a huge vat ruptured in the parish of St. Giles. During Prohibition, people were prescribed medical beer. American craft brewery combined employs fewer people than Anheuser-Busch. The world's most expensive beer is Belgian Wittebrandskors. One bottle costs around $1,000 USD. A rich person spent $5,131 for a beer they'll probably never drink. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson had breweries attached to their residences. At any given time, 0.7% of the world's population is drunk. That means 50 million people are drunk right now. Beer is obviously the main contributor to the drunkenness.
The end. Now I think you ought to go to sleep.
Grandpa?
Maybe you could take me on a brewery tour tomorrow.
As you wish.
The bright tanks is basically where we condition our beer. And that's also where we carbonate our beer. So in the bottom, we've got a nice little carving stone, basically just bubbles CO2 right up through it until, we hit whatever pressure, we're trying to carve at. Usually it's like anywhere between 2 to 3 volumes of CO2. Sometimes a little higher, sometimes a little lower. Just depends on your beer.
Sanitizer, if there's dust or anything in the can. Right there, sitting out. Let's put a date on the bottom of the can. That's a good one.